I want to write a letter to my late wife, Kathy, and I also want to write a letter to my 2 daughters who perished because of my infidelity and, cheating. And to be very honest, to my good people, if only I would have been faithful to my wife, then today my entire family would have been alive. This bad occurrence, this very sad occurrence happened to me in the year 2014. I was an HR officer. I was the head of human resource department at a chemical processing company here in Nairobi. I had just finished my 1 year in employment, and everything was looking up for my family. We were quite stable. Our daughters had begun attending primary 1, and life was beginning to show us its good side. And like they always say, this man called the devil doesn't look at good things twice. So at my workplace, where I used to be the head of the HR department, I used to share a desk with a very, very beautiful lady by the name Stephanie. At work, we used to call her Steph. So Steph and I used to share a desk, and most of the time during our professional life, I was in her space, she was in my space as well. Make no mistake, my good people, Steph was married happily to a businessman who was always traveling around the world chasing money, and what global businessmen do. So Steph was happily married, I was happily married, and everything was okay. One day, out of lust and out of very selfish emotions, Steph and I began, texting each other very lustful messages, and we began getting cheeky with each other, sending each other very funny messages, and it was only a matter of time before Steph and I began having a very, very secret affair. It's not because we were, unhappy in the marriage institutions that we were in at that point, no. It was just lust, sharing space with this particular person who you are, romantically attracted to, and with time you realize that they are looking at you in that kind of way, and you become blind to whatever beautiful that you already have going on, which is called family, and then you hit the road running. So during our work time, during the day when we were at work, we made a solid decisions not to show anything. But after work, we would go somewhere, if it was a restaurant in town, have coffee, talk, explore things outside work. Then when the perfect time came, each of us would part ways to go back home to our families. And this went on for, let's say, 1 or 2 months, if I remember, after which we sadly began dating secretly. And to be very honest, it's that particular decision is one that I truly, truly regret today. So during weekends, I would excuse myself from my family. I would say that I have work outside of Nairobi. Either I was going to field work or to inspect projects or to, monitor our regional salespeople. But in essence, the moment I would get out of my house, I would pick Stephanie up, my deskmate back at work, and we would, get to any town that was in the outskirts of Nairobi, have a good time, have fun, and come back. We decided together with Stephanie that at no point was our affair going to involve emotions. It was going to be purely fun, because we were 2 consenting adults. And as much as it was evil, as much as it was bad, as much as we were doing serious injustice to our partners in marriage, we decided that, man, it was a choice that two consulting adults had made. So whoever wanted to judge would proceed, but we decided to make it, number one, very discreet, very secretive, and number two, no emotions were supposed to come out of our secret romantic affair with Stephanie. It went on well. And I remember very well, it's after 3 months of secretly seeing each other and sometimes closely dodging, being found out by the people we were married to, that one day she came to the office and she looked sad. And she told me, yo, Socrates, my husband is suspecting us. And I was like, Stephanie, how could he be suspecting? Have you been careless, or what made him suspect us? The gentleman is never around. He's always chasing the money, either going to shop outside for his the things he sells. How did he come to suspect us? Stephanie was unsure, but all she told me that we need to go slow on everything because she's now on the radar of her husband. And any time from now, hell would blow. Hell would go loose. So deep in my heart, I knew that maybe she was trying to scare me off, because I had been very, very careful with our romantic affair. I had been very careful not to tolerate any loose ends in this particular affair. And therefore, when she mentioned to me that her husband was suspecting us, I was kind of shocked, but within no time I relaxed. So that same day, she wasn't as bubbly as she was during other times at the office place. She was dull. She had declined taking her lunch and all that, and I got concerned. Not as somebody I was seeing secretly, but like a colleague of mine. I mean, she's sad because of the mere fact that the husband was suspecting us, or what was wrong. So I remember at 4 p.m. that particular day, I offered to take her out. I told her that we wanted to leave work early. She was to leave before me, then I join her in 10 minutes, then we take a drive to somewhere along Ngong Road, get a very well-hidden Airbnb, and, relax and, have a good time like we always did, and perhaps try to cheer her up and reassure her that everything was going to be okay, because then ladies need reassurance. Ladies need somebody who will always remind them that it's going to okay, even if it is okay at that moment. So my good people, for the very first time after close to 5 months of having this secret affair, Stephanie declined going with me for an evening out. She said, no, we have to take this thing slow. Instead of going to rent an apartment right now elsewhere, why don't you just drive me home, because you're the one who has a car right now. Drive me home. I need to go take some painkillers and go straight to bed, but I'm going to make it up to you next week when I feel better. So my good people, I decided, yeah, why not? Let me take her to her place and, let her be herself. Let her take her medicines and let her take rest, because then she had promised to make it up to me when she got better. And that's how we sealed the deal. I took her to her place. She kept on reassuring me that at this particular point that I was taking her to her place, the husband was not there, and there was no need for me to be frightened of driving her home. It was late, and it was not possible for her to, take a public transport back home, and that is why she was asking me to take her there. Though we knew too well how dangerous it was to go to our matrimonial home, because then one careless mistake, then our cover would have been blown up. But I agreed, let me just drive her home. I want you guys to know, who are listening to me today, that deep within me, I had a very guilty conscience engaging in this extramarital affair with Stephanie. I was in a very stable marriage and we were happy. My wife was happy. She was one very hardworking nurse. Our kids were all provided for, my two daughters. And I don't know who to blame. I don't know who to blame as to my engaging myself in this particular extramarital affair. And again, make no mistake, we knew perfectly well that this was a choice that we had made, and whatever would happen, whatever the magnitude of consequences that would happen, we would bear it all. So we hit the road running. I drove her to her place. She was staying all the way at Ruiru, and within what seemed to me like 25 minutes, because there was some slight traffic, we got to the apartment where they had bought together with her husband, who was a business person. So we drove in. At the point that I was driving her, she told me to, just leave her, drop her at the gate, then she would find her way into their home. But I was like, if your husband is not here and you're looking this tired and this sickly, why don't I just drive into the home compound, get you out of the car and get you inside the house so that I can leave you to rest. And though she didn't consent to that wholly, she said, okay, why not? Because then I was insisting. And at the back of my mind, my good people, the husband was not here. So there was nothing to be worried about. So we drove in. I parked my car right into their compound, and I held her hand, helped her out of the car, and she opened the front door of their home, and we were able to walk in. Now, I remember, my good people, we were seated at the sofa there, and she told me that, hey, Socrates, your time to leave. Like I told you back at the office, my husband is suspecting us. He has seen the text that we always exchange, and though he did not respond to whatever he had seen, I know hell may break loose any time from now. So we are going to need to take things very slow, and as at this moment you need to get into your car and go home, because myself, I also want to take my painkillers and sleep. My good people, part of me wanted to heed her advice and just hop into my car and drive away and go back to my family, go back to my wife and kids and be with them. But part of me was feeling so attracted to Stephanie that evening. Part of me did not want to leave her at that particular sickly situation that she was in. Part of me wanted to keep her company and cuddle her up and share a very polite evening with her. And this was the first mistake. This was the first contravention of that particular decision we had made of not involving feelings in this extramarital affair. But sometimes, again, as much as you want to push feelings away, sometimes they can come crashing and you don't know how to control them. So that was the situation. So part of me wanted to go, part of me wanted to stay. And I think the one thing that was making it very difficult for me to want to leave that particular house at that point is the kind of closeness that we had, and when there was a lot of silence in that house and everything was peaceful and we were reflecting on the fun we've had, and now things with the husband now aware that she was seeing somebody out of their home, we knew that our affair was coming to an end. But how does it come to an end so fast when it has merely started? So you can imagine that situation that I was in at that particular evening. So my good people, I want you to picture this, what happened next. We were seated at the couch of that sitting room, and for one reason or the other, we had forgotten, Stephanie had forgotten to switch on the lights of that particular sitting room where we were seated. And when we were at that point sharing a very tight hug, and you know, promising to be careful with our extramarital affair and promising each other heaven and earth, the lights suddenly went on, and standing right in front of the hallway was Stephanie's husband holding a knife. My good people, apparently this guy had been inside the house all along. He had hidden himself on the hallway, the corridors leading to the bedroom, and he had listened to every piece of conversation everything we had spoken about. And there he was, with a very sharp knife, standing on the hallway. The lights are on, and there I am with his wife on the couch, sharing a tight hug. My good people, there's something called reflexes. So when you're a man and you are at the moment of danger, when you're a man and you are confronted with a very lethal situation, you either surrender or you fly. And for people like me, surrendering is a term that we do not know its bare meaning. I decided to fly out of my reflexes. So I remember within a split second, because the guy was standing at the hallway far end of the sitting room, but the couch where we had seated with his wife Stephanie was next to the main door. I bolted out of that door and ran towards my car. And I remember at that point when I was bolting, he threw the knife at me, but sadly I missed the knife very narrowly. It hit the wall and bounced back. So I ran into the car, and the gate was half closed. I knew very well if this man lays his hands on me, it was going to be trouble. It was going to be total trouble. So I managed to get inside the car and, you know, lock all the doors. And mark you, his car was parked on the other side of the house. That's why we had not seen it by the time that I was driving Stephanie, his wife, back home earlier that evening. So I reversed my car, hit the gate, and, you know, got into the main highway, because their apartment, their home was just next to the highway from town towards Juja. That the house was just adjacent to the tarmac. So it's at that point that I reversed dangerously, trying to evade him, because also he had hopped into his car and he was also dangerously driving towards me. I knocked my car on the walls that were adjacent, and I lost all the headlights. And being at night, it was around 8 p.m., I could see nothing. There were no headlights, they were all broken, but I was on the road and I was moving. I was cruising at a very, very dangerous speed. I wanted to get out of that vicinity as soon as I could. And I could see because what had gotten broken were the front lights, the front headlights. The rear lights were still on. I could see the gentleman driving, pursuing me at an equally dangerous speed from behind. And I knew this was going to be a very, very, very interesting night. I didn't know, I've never been to Ruiru before, so I didn't know how many corners were within that tarmac. What I remember is that I missed, because I could not see at the front side of the car, I missed one of the corners, and I remember seeing my car ramming into the windscreen of another car that was oncoming on that corner. There was a car that was coming. I could not see it because it was a sharp bend. So I missed the road, and I knocked that car on the windscreen, and I remember the loud bang. And after that, if I tell you that I remember anything, I will be lying. My world went silent. But when I regained my conscience, I was in a bed. I was later told that was the new branch of Kenyatta National Hospital that is on your way to Thika town. I was on a bed. It was, I think I had broken one of my legs and I had bruises, and I was not badly off, so to be very honest. But I remember the nurses there and the doctors there kept on checking on me. They told me that I'd gotten myself into an accident, and they were happy I was alive. They had done everything within their medical powers to make sure that I lived. And they told me that, we kama uendangi kanisani ama uombi, this was your perfect opportunity to start thanking the God who had saved you from that particular situation. I didn't want to tell them why I got the accident, where I was coming from. You can imagine how embarrassing it was telling them that you had been found with somebody else's wife. So the doctors kept on, sending me all the color, all the love, all the we wish you quick recovery, and all that. And the nurses were very kind to me. One particular nurse took the trouble to explain to me how I had gotten the people who had taken me to the hospital, how I'd been taken there by Good Samaritans. And I asked, what about the car that I had rammed into, the car that we had had an head-on collision? How are they faring on? And are they okay? Who are they? Were they badly hurt? I didn't want to ask about Stephanie's husband, who was chasing me from behind with his car. I would know, hopefully, in the grand scheme of things. So when I asked that particular nurse about the people I had knocked accidentally, who had rammed into their windscreen accidentally, it is in the medical protocols to always bring details of people who had gotten an accident. They are meant to know each other, so that this one isn't the entire process of medical recovery as well as legal recovery and all that. You are supposed to know the people you are involved with in an accident. So she brought to me a file, and she told me, Socrates, these are the details of the people who you had accidentally rammed into your car, into their car. Unfortunately, there were 3 inside there. None of them survived. The impact was so much on them. They had bled so much, and they had lost their lives. So you check out their details and pray for their soul. And that's how the nurse went away. She gave me the file. My good people, when I looked into those files, I realized that the people I had rammed into were actually my wife, my 2 daughters, and they had not survived that accident. They had bled so much. And it so happened that at the time that I was escaping the wrath of Stephanie's husband, my wife and kids had gone to see a sick friend in Thika, and they were on their way back. They had tried to call me to tell me that they had gone to Thika, but I did not pick up the calls. I did not see the text messages, simply because that I was with somebody else's wife. They are the people who had fallen victims of this very bad accident. Men watching, ladies watching, let's stop chasing sunsets and go back home and love our families.